Sarwat, so lovely to be in this place. I always love coming to your home. And every time I see you, it's like I go back decades. It's in the early 60s, we were in the Jesus Mary Convent in Murray. We were privileged to be in a great boarding school. The Irish nuns, I think, taught us a lot. And and when I keep looking after all these decades, you and I have a lot of stories to tell. And interesting stories, I hope, but what I want to say about, what I remember about the Murray Convent days, I still remember the day that your husband's family, Shahid's mother and sister and Shahid came, and she was a very beautiful woman, as you can see, and she was standing there in her uniform, which was just a skirt and a tunic kind of a thing. And and she was in pre-senior, just a year before your senior Cambridge.
That's right.
And her in-laws, who she's had a wonderful marriage with Shahid. I'll tell you about him later. But they saw her and blown away. This woman got married even before she finished, got engaged even before she finished her senior Cambridge. So that particular thing about Sarwat has never left me. And since then, Sarwat has got married. Her husband is a very successful bureaucrat and a lawyer. He used to be the governor of Punjab. And Sarwat was one of the most beautiful wives, among the most beautiful wives. And what was so lovely about Sarwat is that throughout that period when Shahid was doing so well, she never changed in her personality. She was in control, she was matured, she continued as if, nothing had changed. And it was something that I really, really, really admired so much about her. She's a very together woman, as you can see. But Sarwat, tell me about yourself. Through the years after your marriage, you came to know her, and I want to know about you.
And you're always so lavish with your praise. You just too kind.
It was not lavish at all, it's just as it is.
But you're absolutely right, and I have to agree with you. We were so privileged to have the best upbringing, to have the best education, and to be just thrown together with a group of girls we didn't know any girls from Karachi. We were an army family and posted in small cantonments, were always in small places, Khariyan and Jhelum and Nowshera and places like that. So to be thrown together with girls, some from Karachi, some from East Pakistan as it was then.
And mainly from Northeast Frontier.
And mostly from the frontier, you're absolutely right, from Swat, from Peshawar, Abbottabad, all these places. That taught us, it was such a melting pot, and we were there without parents, without family support, with nobody to go crying to, and we were all young girls, we were pre-teenage years, we were there, and we learned for ourselves how to conduct ourselves, how to make friends, how to stick with our friends throughout life, and also how to understand other people and be understood by them. That was such a lesson, and the nuns were such a stabilizing factor because they treated us all equally. They knew everything about us, our families, our backgrounds. They taught us, like you say, the values, even though they were Irish nuns who were teaching us all those values. Now when I think about it, and when I, in my own time, was teaching the same things to my daughters, I realized that they were Irish Catholic nuns, but everything that they taught us was exactly the same as Islamic values. To be truthful, to be honest, to be kind, to look after others, all the things that we learned from the nuns is what we taught our daughters. And that was the strong and stable foundation that we got. And then, of course, to look out for ourselves and to look out for our friends. Because like I said, there was no family in the boarding school. It was just all of us living our lives together for 10 years, 12 years together, some of us. And then later in life, of course, we all went our own ways. But the amazing thing is that even if we meet one of our boarding school friends after a gap of 20 years maybe, it's like you know everything about the other person. you know your friends inside out, and you pick up the threads and carry straight on from that moment on. There's like no time lost, doesn't create a gap in your relationship. And another thing is that, of course, when we all went our own ways, each of us had a life completely different from the other. But we continued to remain in touch, and we continued to learn from each other's good times and from adversity. From Marina, we learned how stoic and how brave she was through times of adversity, which all of us have been through in our own lives at different times, and how to offer strength and love and that very close bond that only sisters can have. We have that for each other. And as life takes us through different phases, we had our children and the girls got married, and then different stages of life. Of course, we all went through ups and downs, health-wise, jobs-wise, whatever life has in store for us. But we had this amazing network where we could look to each other as an example to each of us. So that's all about life and where it takes us. And I think Marina points out that all the while that Shahid was governor, I didn't think it was anything extraordinary. By the grace of God, yes, he had a lot of responsibility, and he took it very seriously. And Alhamdulillah, whoever used to come to congratulate us when he became the governor, Bahut Mubarak, lots of congratulations. And Shahid and I would both say to everybody, please just pray for us and congratulate us at the end of his tenure if you feel that we have, come up to what people's expectations were, and that we have been able to do the things that we were supposed to do while Shahid was holding that office. And by the grace of God, everybody appreciated the fact that we had no false pretenses, that we've suddenly become very important, or we are VIPs, or whatever else people might think about themselves. We had no such illusions. Our good friends remained our good friends, and we were the same as we always were. No reason to feel anything differently. And so life carries on, and now, by the grace of God, we're all in that stage of our lives when we are looking back, and we do have a chance to assess what a long way we've come and how privileged we've been.
And a life very well lived.
And a life very well lived. And Marina, you and I, both, and all our friends, are in that position where for years now we have felt that life has given us so much opportunity, so much experience, that we have a lot that we can give back to society, as in guiding young women, guiding young girls, helping to groom them, helping them to prepare for the life which they are now going to lead, which is lives of almost all young girls now are working towards careers of their own. And whatever, we all feel the same way. In whichever way we can help them, we must reach out. And we must be the first ones to reach out and explain to them whatever there is in our lives that can be of experience or use to them in their careers going forward. Not that we were working women, so we can't guide them in that, but all young girls these days are so highly qualified, way more
But we have
qualified.
a lot of experience.
But from our experience, we can teach them things about life that no degree will teach them. So that is something that we need to share with the youngsters, and also in a gentle manner remind them of the values that we grew up with, which are considered old-fashioned and maybe not fashionable anymore, but they are the basics and will remain so. They might be a bit outdated, but it does not hurt to be good to someone. It does not harm anyone to be helpful. These are things that are appreciated, I believe, through any age and through any times, modern or old-fashioned. So these are the things one has learned, and these are the things that I think one needs to pass on to the next generation especially to young women, because they are the ones who are going to raise their families going forward. So this, I think, Marina, is something, it's a task cut out for us. And we are ideally placed now, at this stage in our lives, to be giving back to our families, to our friends, a group of acquaintances, anybody who's willing to listen or take any advice from us.
The other thing I want you to tell me is the exquisite governor's mansion that you lived in, the pre-partition mansion. I've always loved it. When I visited you there, I visited other governors as well. I mean, it's such an exquisite thing. Tell me your experience while living in that home.
I'll give you a very brief history of the Governor's House, Lahore, because it evolved, like you said, it's a pre-partition building, but it is actually the beginning, the foundation of it starts from the Mughal era during the reign of Akbar, when he was the Badshah, the Emperor of India. And one of his governor to Kabul was very dear to him, and he really cherished his work and valued him very highly. That governor was assassinated in Kabul. Akbar ordered his body to be brought back and buried in Lahore in these beautiful green gardens way away from the walled city of Lahore. And so he was buried there, and a mausoleum, a beautiful mausoleum constructed over his grave. And that remained you could say a picnic spot, or a place where, you know, notables and courtiers and all would come to sort of take the evening air. It was like a cool place well away from the walled city. As time passed, and the British came. Now, when the Mughal period was over and the British were ruling the subcontinent, the British army had an encampment, and they found this beautifully tended garden and pitched their tents and horses and whatever, and that became the sort of temporary, you could say, garrison for the British forces in Lahore. Over time, they constructed some buildings for residential purposes. And they constructed two wings with the mausoleum in the center. And then construction started on those, further construction started, and it started expanding in over centuries, literally, and in a slightly haphazard manner. Therefore, you cannot really use one word for the style in which it is constructed, because it is part Mughal, part British, some colonial, some very local architecture. So it's a very interesting mix of everything. And eventually, we found ourselves living there in this absolutely amazing building, steeped in history, with with so many foreign visitors over the years have come, lived over there, from Jackie Kennedy to the Queen Elizabeth on two different occasions, to many world leaders, and of course our own governors and governor generals over the years. A lot of the architecture, of course, is very amazing and very stunning, but all the while that I was there, in fact the year that we were there, the first year that we were there was the 50 years celebration of Pakistan being formed as a country. And we were going to have a lot of foreign visitors in that year. So much renovations were carried out, but I have to say that some people were disappointed that I didn't sort of glam up the Governor House. I instead concentrated, because it was such an old building. I did the necessary, like replacing the plumbing, the wiring, and also the sewage lines. It was a time when split unit for ACs were becoming, had just sort of started out. It was still a new thing. So I replaced all the VIP guest rooms with, I removed the window ACs and we put in split level ACs which needed new wiring and whatever. So all the renovation work, a lot of it that was done in Governor House at that time, was not visible, but it certainly made living there far more practical and a little more modern, in the sense that the plumbing was good, the bathroom fixtures were, everything worked and looked quite neat and clean. And I didn't think that building needed anything to glam it up.
Knowing you, you were probably very, very careful about the funds. You didn't want to. That's an ingrained thing in some of us, that doing things in a budget. That must have been in your mind.
Absolutely. And Nagar Ali Dada, the architect, and I consulted with other people from the National College of Arts, because it was such an old and historic building. Of course, the most important thing is to work within funds and to retain the old historic architecture and the feel of the place, and I have to say, the simplicity with which these places were built. Of course, they were amazing and quite, you can say, anybody who came for the first time was quite awestruck with the grandeur of the place. But all the grandeur lay in the simplicity. It was not the kind of place that you could decorate in the, the way people use the term decorate. It didn't need any of that. It spoke for itself.
It's also the value of the place.
The value of the place and the historic baggage that it carries, and vast gardens. It has
I remember the walk I took from the mansion to the end of the
lake at the back.
Yeah,
yes.
And a zoo, I think, right?
Yes, there's a small zoo with some exotic birds
it's
and deer.
Mansion,
it really is, and fruit trees, and it has its own little dairy farm at the back. And long before partition. Yes, it developed over the years, starting from Akbar's reign. That was the nucleus of what it. And now the mausoleum. Well, everybody has a different view on this, and it is a bit of a controversial subject. But the present formal dining room of the governor's mansion is the room directly above the mausoleum. It's part of the mausoleum, which is the dining room now.
Wow.
And a lot of people feel very strongly about that, but that's what it is. And also one very other interesting thing which I didn't know anything about. I learned this while I was, getting the floors polished, and all the doors, Marina, the windows, the railings, the staircases are all solid Burma teak.
Wow.
Which, is really something now, but even then it was something very special. And the Darbar Hall, which is a vast ceremonial hall where all the big dinners take place and all the special investiture ceremonies and all take place. That of course has a wooden floor, and it has a very high ceiling and a balcony that runs all around it. And while I read up on it and I looked at some old records of the governor's house, and I discovered that it is one of the few halls which has a sprung floor. Now, I didn't know what a sprung floor was. Apparently, the wooden floor in very few, there's one in Delhi, one in Simla, and the one in Lahore, has a sprung floor which was meant for ballroom dancing.